Hello boys and girls, welcome to English Literature for Grade 7. I'm your teacher, Sir Jared McFoy. Today we want to explore setting in the novel Animal Farm written by George Orwell. Are you ready? Let's dive right in. What is setting? When you hear this word, what comes to mind for you? A story setting refers not only to the physical location, but also the time the action takes place. It is where and the when of a story. So usually when persons talk about setting, they just like to say, it is the time and the place in which a story occurs, but it's more than that. We also need to think about when this story occurs in terms of time. Now, let's talk about time a little further. When does the story take place? What is the time period? What is the season? Does the story take place in the morning, at midday, in the afternoon, at night? We also need to think about the time period. Okay, 1 o'clock, at midnight. We can also think about the season. As we know, in some countries, persons experience winter, fall, summer, spring. When it comes to setting, we need to also think about the geography. What is the location? For example, it takes place in Portland. What is the physical geography? Does the story have mountains? Do we have lakes? What is the weather like? What kind of movement happens in and out of the setting? Now, I want you to think about where you live. For example, where I live, it is seasonal in the sense of sometimes the community is very busy. A lot of cars pass up and down. You see a lot of children on the road. And then another time, it's very quiet. You almost ask yourself, is anybody living in this village here? Is anybody living in this community? Now, what is the relationship between the setting and the outside world? For example, is it a closed-off world or is it open to the rest of the world? Now, this is very important. Some persons or in some stories, the characters are very isolated. They're in what we like to call a little bubble. So in their mind, this is all that exists, when in reality, there's a bigger world outside of what they know. Now, when we talk about setting, I want us to also think about the social environment. Who lives in the setting? Is it rural or urban? What are the houses like? I want us to think about that. What are the languages spoken? What are the cultures represented? Is it multicultural? What cultural characteristics manifest themselves in the setting? What are the norms and rules of the location? How does the setting influence the characters? And this is a very important point. Now, I like to see, if we're going to the beach, I would not expect you to wear your school uniform to go, because guess what? That would not be appropriate. I would expect you to wear beach gear, I would call it a beach outfit, versus if you are going to school, you will not wear what you would wear to go to the beach. Likewise, your behavior may not necessarily be the same, because at school, you are expected to follow certain ethics, whereas at the beach, you would behave differently. So one thing I want you to always observe as you're reading about a character, look at how they interact with their environment. When they're in this particular environment, are they tense or are they at ease? These are things I want you to think about. When it comes to setting, I also want you to think about the sensory aspect. How does the place feel? What does the place look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like, if it has a taste? What are the sounds of the location? Like I said earlier, in my community, sometimes it's very loud. You hear a lot of cars passing up and down. They're honking their horn. Sometimes it's very quiet. What does it look like? Then we can also consider the history of the environment. What has happened in the setting before these characters began interacting there? What is the backstory of the setting? What are the things of the past that nobody wants to talk about? For example, I've heard from many people that in my community, before it came into the kind of development that we are seeing today, that part of it was a burying ground and there was also a hospital there. I'm always shocked when I hear stories about it, because if you look at my community now, you wouldn't be able to tell. Now, let's turn our attention to the setting specifically in this novel. The name gives it away. The novel is called Animal Farm. So the physical setting of the story is an imaginary farm in England. While the story lacks a historical time frame, we know that it is based on the era of the Russian Revolution. The setting is important to the plot with the use of a variety of animals that engage in a power struggle with each other. In this regard, Orwell was able to represent the struggle between the different classes in the communist society and their quest for equality. Orwell found that the isolated farm in the countryside was useful as it allowed Old Major to bring his dream of a revolution into fruition, and for Napoleon to revel in uninterrupted power, thus revealing the corrupt nature of human beings. So what we see in the story is that George Orwell uses this setting at one level, let's say at the literal level, this farm. But with this setting, he is telling us something greater beneath the surface. Now, I hope that you enjoyed learning about setting, and specifically about setting in this novel. Whenever you read a story, I want you to think about the points that we would have discussed. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until next time, I'm Sir Jared, and I'm out.